Welcome to the Resource Nexus podcast. Today we're breaking down the Big Ten. No fluff, just numbers and my thoughts. We'll have an article up on the resourcenexus.com as well with all this information and rankings for each conference preview, so check that out if you want. Before we jump in, a quick note on the rankings. These aren't your usual hype or highlight reel assumptions. It's all data. Last season's statistical performance adjusted for the quality of who you played against. If you dominated a tough league, that shows. If not, well, we account for that too. Freshmen are projections. Everyone else is straight up statistical facts they have posted. All right, let's roll. Let's kick things off at the top of the Big Ten. And honestly, no surprise here. Purdue checks in at number one in the league and number one in the country. Purdue sits comfortably at the top, and they return more top-rated players than anyone. And more importantly, they've got that all-important continuity. In recent years, that's seemed to matter less with most teams having so much turnover. This year, it might start mattering more again with less overwhelming talent with the COVID super senior class moving on. Trey Kaufman-Renn, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, all back in the mix. Kaufman-Renn is an absolute monster. Number 2 nationally with a 6.3 rating. Braden Smith, he's right behind him, ranked 4th in the country with a 5.6. Fletcher Lawyer gives them another weapon, a 55th overall, and rated at 4.3. That's 3 guys back who are all nationally elite. Now, throw in Oscar Clough, 110th overall with a 3.6 rating, a proven rim protector from Washington State, and started most games over Ruben Chinyelu out there. Split minutes, yeah. But he held his own and then some. He gives Purdue something they haven't had. Real interior defense. CJ Cox adds more stability off the bench. He's 237th with a 3.0 rating. And you've got younger guys like Ja'Carry Harris and Omer Mayer, both just outside the top 750, rated around 1.7. Depth guys who could develop, but you probably won't need them unless injuries hit. I've got Purdue rated number 1 in the country. Statistically, 2 of the top 4 players nationally return. That's a rare combo of talent and experience, and it gives them a sky-high floor. Houston might rate out a little better overall, but they're leaning more on freshmen. Purdue's model of success just looks sturdier right now. Continuity, proven talent, and a system that's been refined under Matt Painter, who, by the way, basically never puts out a bad product. And with the COVID super seniors mostly gone, experience matters more than ever this year. That's where Purdue really separates. No chemistry issues, no wondering how the pieces fit. Just 3 stars running it back, with a new rim protector to patch up the one weak spot they had last year. And I've seen some people try to poke holes in Purdue, but I'll say this, when you got 2 of the 5 best players in the country, arguably the best continuity in the nation, and the structure Painter brings to the table, you're not just a favorite in the Big Ten. You're a title contender, period. At number 2, we've got Illinois. And this is one of the more intriguing rosters in the Big Ten, and honestly, maybe in the entire country. Let's start with the headliners, the Ivisic brothers. Tomislav and Zvonimir are holding down the front court. Tomislav checks in at 17th nationally with a 5.3 rating. That's elite. Zvonimir isn't far behind, ranked 116th with a 3.6. That's size, skill, and built-in chemistry from day one. But it doesn't stop there. Illinois went international again and snagged Mihailo Petrovic. He's ranked 38th in the nation with a 4.6 rating, big upside, and he's going to make an impact on both ends if he adjusts quickly. Returning guard Kylan Boswell is back to run the show. He's ranked 84th with a 3.9, rock solid. Then there's Andrej Stojakovic, who brings that scoring punch off the wing. He lands at 135th nationally, rating 3.5, smooth-skilled, and should thrive in this setup. David Mirkovic gives them another rotation piece up front. He ranks 233rd with a 3.0. And then you've got Ben Hummerkus and Ty Rogers, both sitting right at 2.9. They're ranked 258th and 259th respectively, though there is a chance Rogers misses the season, which would be a hit to their physicality and glue guy factor. And rounding things out, Jara Gibbs Lawhorn. He's 685th with a 1.8. He may not be a star, but he's capable of giving them energy minutes off the bench. Overall, Illinois is deep. They're experienced. And if this year's international crew gels like last year's group did, look out. This is a team with serious national upside, a blend of Euro skill, returning talent, and positional size that can cause real problems for opponents. Coming in at number 3 is Michigan. Nationally, they're slotted at 14th, and a big part of that is thanks to their front court. Morez Johnson checks in at 47th in the country with a 4.5 rating. Yaxel Lindeborg isn't far behind, for ranked 63rd with a 4.1. Together, they give Michigan one of the most balanced and productive front lines in the country. Now look, I was higher than anyone on Yaxel last year. This season, I'm a little more measured. But here's a thought experiment for you. Zion had a 40-plus PER against a top 10 strength of schedule. You're telling me Yaxel couldn't crack a 30 playing out of conference games against the 351st ranked schedule and in a watered-down American Athletic Conference that barely registers if the... Come on. This year the hype is there, but the substance, that's more questionable. And honestly, what Michigan's doing is kind of fascinating. I mean, sure, Yaxel and Morez can coexist, but if you're planning to run things again through Yaxel as a facilitator like last year, then why go get Elliot Cadeau? That feels like a strange use of money. The fit is just weird. And listen, I've been down this road before. I had both Clough and Batcho rated higher than anyone else moving from the power conferences down. Same with Yaxel. I was highest on him last preseason too. But now I think people are overrating what his impact will be. Anyway, the supporting cast is where things get really interesting. Nimari Burnett ranks 126th with a 3.6 rating. Trey McKinney is 147th, rating 3.5. Roddy Gale Jr. and Ade Mara, nearly identical, 159th and 160th, both with 3.4 ratings. And Elliot Cadeau, the wild card, lands at 210th, rating 3.1. That's 7 players in the top 210 nationally. Michigan has a real depth that they just need to figure out the roles and find a rhythm. If they do that, they're absolutely in the Big Ten title mix. Rounding out this top 4, it's Wisconsin. They're sitting 18th nationally, and they bring back some real firepower. Nolan Winter is the headliner. He checks in at 31st overall with a 4.7 rating. That's legit top-tier stuff. John Blackwell isn't far behind, 64th nationally, rated 4.1. That's a big-time duo returning to an offense that's all about precision, execution, efficiency. Nick Boyd gives them another steady rotation piece. He's 152nd, rated 3.4. Andrew Rode clocks in at 369th with a 2.5. Then you've got Austin Rapp at 522, rated 2.1. And Alexis Biliauskas at 589 with a 2.0. Now let's circle back to Winter for a second. He put up a 135 offensive rating and a 23 PER against a top 25 strength of schedule. That's extremely valuable production on a good team. Even I had to do a double take on that one. So while the top-end talent is definitely there, the depth isn't quite as secure as last year, but if those role guys level up, Wisconsin should be right there near the top of the Big Ten again. Now, at number 5 in the Big Ten and 19th nationally, like we've got UCLA. And let me tell you, it's the continuity in the front court is honestly a little underrated. Eric Daly comes in ranked 36 nationally with a 4.6 rating. Tyler Bilodeau is right behind him, 41st, with a 4.5. That's a rock-solid duo up front. Now add Donovan Dent to that mix. The New Mexico transfer comes in at 57th overall with a 4.2 rating. That gives UCLA a seriously nice piece in the backcourt. They were 20th last year, and now they've added Dent to the Bilodeau Daly core. plus Sky Clark and some shooting with Lazarus Brown. That's a strong foundation. That's better than most people are giving them credit for. Sky Clark's ranked 140th with a 3.5 rating. Yeah, he's been inconsistent, but there's upside there. And Steven Jamerson rounds out the main rotation. He comes in at 297th with a 2.8. Now here's the question mark. Xavier Booker. He's replacing Ade Mara, still outside the top 500 right now. Just a 2.0 rating. But the hope is that his pedigree finally clicks this year. If it does, UCLA could absolutely outperform expectations. But what they do have is size, but balanced and more returning continuity than people realize. Next up, number 6 in the Big Ten and number 20 nationally, Michigan State. Tom Izzo is a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. But this year's squad comes with some very real limitations, starting with shooting. There's no clear one-and-done freshman ready to bail them out this season. That said, the talent base is still legit. Cohen Carr is a physical freak as he ranks 48th nationally with a 4.5 rating. Jackson Kohler, a highly skilled big man, comes in at 58th with a 4.2. Jeremy Fears Jr. is back running the point guard spot, ranked 175th nationally with a 3.3 rating. Carson Cooper gives them depth up front, sitting at 285th overall with a 2.8 rating. Caleb Glenn just misses the top 300, coming in at 304th, but he's part of that forward rotation as well. You've got enough talent here to win in any style of play, but I don't see this as a roster that maximizes Izzo's usual grinded-out approach while ignoring shooting. Honestly, I'd be frustrated as hell if he were my coach. Good results, sure, but leaving so much on the table by not addressing shooting when it seems so obviously fixable. They added Trey Fort out of the transfer portal, but he's down at 650th nationally with a 1.9 rating. Not exactly an inspiring pick if you're hoping for elite floor spacing. Bottom line, I don't love the ceiling here unless someone takes a big leap forward, but the floor is still classic Izzo level solid. I'm giving Michigan State respect because Izzo has proven he can win without three-point shooting. But in my system, this roster isn't overly talented. All right, coming in at number 7 in the Big Ten and 22nd nationally, Ohio State. Look, I still have my questions about Jake Diebler as a head coach. But man, this roster, it's absolutely stacked. Ohio State is kind of crushing it this offseason. No faith in Diebler, though. Got to keep it real. Bruce Thornton might be the best point guard in the conference. He ranks 9th nationally in our model. Yeah, 9th with a 5.5 rating. At least Thornton's numbers demand respect. John Mobley Jr. is in the 130 range nationally. That roster legitimately has top 10 type talent. I'm not a Diebler believer, but honestly, it's going to be hard to screw this up. Devin Royal is another rising star, ranked 25th overall with a 5.0 rating. And assuming Josh Ojianwuna is fully healthy, you've got a top 60 center anchoring the paint. He clocks in at 54th with a 4.3 rating. The freshman, John Mobley Jr., is a sharp shooter, ranked 134th with a 3.5 rating. Christoph Tilley is another promising newcomer at 156th with a 3.4. Even Brandon Knoll, more of a depth piece, checks in at 466 with a 2.2. When I say this team is loaded, I mean loaded. They rank 13th nationally in talent. Diebler basically just needs to not mess it up. And yeah, there's definitely a Diebler haircut baked into this ranking. But if he's really the guy Ohio State thinks he is, we'll know by February. Next up, number 8 in the Big Ten and 29th nationally, Oregon. This team is going to be fascinating. Nathan Biddle is back, and he's not just good, he's elite. Our model ranks him as the third best returning player in the entire country with a 6.2 rating. Yes, you heard that right, third. My preseason sleeper list last year had Ejiofor, Biddle, Saunders, Baker Mazzara, Dayinja, Awaka, Clough, and others on it. And just look at the leaps they made. The per-possession jumps were obvious. Jackson Shellstad returns at point guard ranked 104th with a 3.7 rating. I think some overrate him, but continuity at point guard and center is usually a winning formula. Kwame Evans is a top 250 guy, ranked 232nd with a 3.0 rating. Sean Stewart, the Duke transfer, comes in at 329th with a 2.6. Both those guys need to prove they can produce consistently. Depth is definitely the issue here. Des Lindsey and Devin Pryor both rank outside the top 700 nationally. The wing spot, especially small forward, is the biggest question mark. How Dana Altman juggles Evans and Stewart in that forward rotation could be the swing factor, but the floor with Biddle and Shellstad, very solid. USC, sitting 9th in the Big Ten, ranked 30th nationally, sporting an AD Jeff team rating of 3.5. That's a slide from 57th last season, so they're inching down a bit. Their standout star, Baker Mazzara. This guy is a legit top 15 talent nationally, ranked number 13 with an impressive rating of 5.3. USC actually picked up a lot of good pieces this offseason. Mazzara, in particular, stands out as the best transfer in the portal according to my rankings. The guy's simply one of the best players in the country. He averaged 12.3 points per game in just 25.6 minutes, facing an all-time elite strength of schedule with a .604 true shooting percentage. That efficiency is nothing to sneeze at. Now, Elijah Arenas seems to have recovered well, and he's ranked 108th nationally with a 3.7 rating. Supporting the backcourt, you've got Rodney Rice at 132 with a 3.5 rating, and Terrence Williams at 149, also 3.5. Then there's some solid depth in the 200 to 300 range. Ezra Osar ranked 176th with a 3.3, and Jacob Kofi at 288 with a 388. That said, USC's post players remain something of a question mark. Coach Musselman might have lost a bit of his fastball. We'll have to see if he can shake things up this year or if fans should start lowering expectations. There's talent there, but the post situation could easily become a bottleneck. Moving on to Washington, who sit just behind USC, 10th in the Big Ten, 31st nationally, with a team rating of 3.4, climbing up from 104th last season. The real gem here, Hannes Steinbach, ranked 20th nationally, rating 5.2, who's quietly one of the best players nobody's talking about. His international stats translate incredibly well on a per-possession basis, making him arguably the second best player behind Frew. And trust me, that's saying something. Digging into the BBL, I recognize some names like Carson Edwards. Not a big guy, but averaging 14.9 points per game with a 16 PER. At 27, he's in his absolute prime. This is the kind of caliber we're talking about. Frew, averaging 12.4 points per game with a 23.1 PER, is seriously impressive when you consider that. Sure, it doesn't translate one-to-one, but it's a great benchmark for the talent level. Washington's core also includes Desmond Claude, ranked 118th with a 3.6 rating, and Wesley Yates III at 129th, 3.5. Both solid top 150 talents that give the Huskies a strong foundation. Keep an eye on Mady Traore too. He's 193rd nationally with a 3.2 rating and could be a key piece. All right, next up we've got Iowa. They're sitting at 11th in the Big Ten and 38th nationally with a team rating of 2.5, which is a bit of a dip from 62nd last year. Yeah, a noticeable slide. Iowa's biggest strength, McCollum. This guy might just be the best talent maximizer in the entire country. His Division I experience is limited. Only one season under his belt, but the background behind him is solid. And Drake, who ranked 52nd nationally, and they're bringing back Bennett Sturts, who's rated 3.7 and sits at 95th nationally. He's their key driver moving forward. Now, the ceiling for Iowa, that really hinges on Alvaro Figueras. He's ranked 580th with a 2.0 rating in my model. Statistically, he hasn't lit up the board yet, but with McCollum coaching, there's definitely a chance he unlocks some hidden potential. I'm quite skeptical, however. It just feels like he should have been more productive versus the low major 300 schedule he played in reality. If Clough can post the numbers he did, why can't Folgueras? He was also useless as a freshman, so there isn't even multiple years of sustained play. Other names to watch: Brendan Housen, ranked 203rd with a 3.1 rating, and Tavian Banks, just outside the top 300 at 340th with a 2.6 rating. Switching gears to Indiana, ranked 12th in the Big Ten, 42nd nationally with a team rating of 2.7. That's a bit of a drop from 45th last year. Indiana's vibe this year? Honestly, they feel more like a mid-major all-star team than a Big Ten contender. Tucker DeVries is their likely top player. He's ranked 128th nationally with a 3.5 rating. Overrated. Reed Bailey at 169th and Luke Good at 194th add some decent depth, but especially with a tougher strength of schedule on the horizon. Let's talk DeVries for a second. Last year, he only played 8 games, and that small sample was noisy. His unsustainable three-point shooting, which he had no history of, skewed things, plus his two-point percentage was pretty poor. No one really talks about the health factor, but it's huge here. Most of DeVries' numbers come from the Drake translations, and that 8-game sample included games against part of West Virginia's 139th ranked out-of-conference schedule. If you cherry-pick the best of that small sample, he could probably hit a ceiling around a 4.4 rating, roughly the 45th best player nationally. But that's a stretch given the sample size. From what he's done against 50 to 75 range Missouri Valley Conference teams, I actually think he's one of the more overrated players nationally, at least as the team's best guy. Now, Lamar Wilkerson might be Indiana's wild card. He's ranked 231st nationally with a 3.0 rating, and he could emerge as a genuine star. Tayton Connerway and Sam Alexis fall outside the top 300 with ratings of 2.3 and 2.1 respectively. Beyond that, the roster dips further in quality. That's not necessarily a death sentence. Lots of players level up, but plenty don't too. Wilkerson on paper is kind of comparable to Lucy Patterson, who transferred in last year from UNC Charlotte. Similar Big Ten comps, similar strength of schedule, similar ratings. Ace Baldwin 2 years ago was in a similar spot. That's probably the range of outcomes Indiana can expect. The quality of competition should matter in projections. We know Luke Good can perform against a top 20 strength of schedule on a competent team. We don't know if Wilkerson can do that against even a top 100 schedule yet. Finally, a quick note on Coach DeVries. He's had a decent track record at Drake in West Virginia, but he's never really shown a high ceiling as a coach. He benefited from coaching his son, who was an MVC star, but it's unclear if that success translates to this roster. Honestly, I don't really trust DeVries as a coach. Sorry, but his elite moments came mostly from having his son on the roster and an assistant coach who brought in some elite JUCO players and a few high school buddies. Finding Javon Small was a big win for him too. But without that family connection and those key players, I'm not sure the program gets off the ground. And yeah, some of those players apparently came with some baggage too at Drake. 13th in the conference, we got Maryland, sitting 43rd nationally with an AD Jeff rating of 2.6. That's a drop from 10th last year. Farrell Payne is the real upside here, but ranked 28th nationally with a strong 4.9 rating. But here's the catch. Last year, he played under a coach who just wouldn't give him 30-plus minutes. I'm skeptical that changes this season either. Maryland's talent pool is thinner now, so they really need Payne to step up and log those minutes. No more hiding him on the bench. He's a statistical monster versus a top 10 strength of schedule, and hopefully this year the coach lets him play 30 minutes. Buzz has had some success, but his style always feels like it underachieves because of the lack of shooting and playing 10-plus guys. You need way more talent to get the same output as a system like Ben McCollum's, which really optimizes the talent you have and gets the most out of it. Other contributors for Maryland, Miles Rice, ranked 250th nationally with a 2.9 rating, plus Elijah Saunders at 363rd with a 2.5. But overall, depth looks thin, and that's going to be a real challenge. Moving on to Minnesota, coming in 16th in the Big Ten, 55th nationally with a 2.3 AD Jeff rating, slipping from 83rd last year. Jalen Crocker Johnson, ranked 256 nationally at 2.9, joins Coach Medved from Colorado State. That continuity could give Minnesota a nice jump start. They don't have overwhelming talent, but Medved has a history of overachieving, so keep an eye on them. Minnesota also fields Robert Vaihola, just outside the top 300 at 308 with a 2.7 rating, and Bobby Durkin at 341 with a 2.6 rating. Those players could help smooth out some rough edges. Next up, Nebraska, 14th in the Big Ten, ranked 48th nationally with an AD Jeff rating of 2.6, down from 46th last season. Nebraska's never won an NCAA tournament game, and I don't think next year's the year either. They get a boost from the return of Riank Mast, who's 157th nationally with a solid 3.4 rating. Connor Isagian at 136 and Price Sandfort at 284 also bring shooting to the floor. Mast's health is crucial. If he stays strong, Nebraska could maintain their recent level despite some roster losses. Northwestern, 15th in the Big Ten, 52nd nationally with a 2.3 rating, down from 44th last year. Nick Martinelli is the standout, 40th nationally with a 4.5 rating, a stud no doubt. Coach Collins is seriously underrated, and he always gets more with less. But outside of Martinelli, the roster takes a big hit, and depth looks shaky. All right, let's slide into the lower half of the Big Ten rankings for 2025 to 2026, starting with Penn State and Rutgers. Penn State slots in 18th in the conference, sitting 97th nationally with a 1.8 AD Jeff rating. That's a steep drop from 58th last year. Replacing key guys like Ace Baldwin and Niederhauser is going to be a Herculean task for Rhodes. Freddie DeLeone-Fiv leads the charge, ranked 435 nationally with a 2.3 rating, but honestly expect a significant drop-off in production. Caden Mingo is right there too at 448 nationally, also part of this rebuilding puzzle. It's clear Penn State's facing a tough road ahead. Now Rutgers comes in just above them, 17th in the Big Ten and 89th nationally with a 1.9 AD Jeff rating, down from 70th last season. Coach Pikiel's tenure has been, underwhelming. Over the last 4 years, Rutgers has finished between 70th and 100th nationally 3 times, despite landing 2 high lottery picks last season. The roster construction never quite made sense, and this year's squad doesn't inspire much confidence either. Their top player, Harun Zerno, sits at 296th nationally with a 2.8 rating. His international stats translate well, which is a plus, but beyond him, not much to get excited about. Darren Buchanan, ranked 327th, and Michael Davis at 481st round out the main contributors. Here's where it gets interesting, or frustrating, depending on your perspective. Rutgers just paid Pikiel a salary that ranks 26th highest among college basketball coaches nationwide as of March 13th. So, in what world is that kind of ROI acceptable? He just coached a team with a legitimate top 10 player in the country, plus 2 top 5 NBA picks, to a 70th place finish. I'm not surprised. I had Rutgers ranked 75th in the preseason and wrote extensively about how absurd their roster construction was. The fundamental issues that plagued that team have been glaring year after year. If you think this year's roster shows progress, I can't agree. So, yeah, Penn State and Rutgers aren't just battling opponents on the court. They're fighting uphill battles with roster construction, coaching, and expectations. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more conference previews coming. All right, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you got some good insights. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who'd find it useful. And don't forget to check out the resourcenexus.com for more in-depth analysis. Until next time, check you later.
Cool. Guess we'll see you around.
All right, check you later.
Bye.
Wait, man, why are you always such a dork, man? What are you talking